In hour 10, we look at the same passage in the Odyssey that we looked at in hour 9 as our text A. And I need to do that because within a very short space of each other, there are two words that really tell you almost everything you want to know about the Odyssey. We already saw the word Nostos at line 5. Now we're concentrate on the word Noos at line 3. And these two words, when you put them together, are a kind of micro story, a micro narrative of the entire Odyssey. And in the first 10 lines of the Odyssey, you can understand this compressed version of the plot very well in terms of the interaction of these two words when we trace them throughout the entire length of the Odyssey, throughout all 24 performance units or rhapsodies. Now, Nostos is a safe homecoming, or a song about a safe homecoming. Noos is consciousness. It turns out that this idea of consciousness operates by way of a metaphor, which is what happens when you become unconscious and you become conscious again. And that is drawn into a parallel with what happens when the sun sets in the far west and then rises in the far east. And in the mythological thinking of the ancient Greek song culture, what happens between sunset and sunrise is a mystical passage that leads to a form of regeneration. The sun is regenerated every morning. And similarly, when somebody dies and they somehow set as the sun sets, when the sun rises the morning after, somehow the dead person rises the same way that the sun rises. And I'm using inaccurate language by saying dead person. There are all sorts of specific ways of saying it in the ancient Greek, and we will explore that in the course of hour 10. But I just want to emphasize that noos, consciousness, is a return in its own right. And it turns out both nostos and noos come from a verb, nes, and linguists put an asterisk in front of it to indicate that we're reconstructing something. We're going into a prehistoric phase of the language. And nes can best be described as a return to light and life. So just as nostos is a return, noos too is a return, but in a mystical way. It's a mystical way of talking about nostos. And then as we start to explore nostos even further, we start realizing that nostos is not just a safe homecoming, that nostos too has a deeper significance, and that deeper significance does have to do with the mechanics of the sun setting and the sun rising. The perfect place where it all comes together is the moment when Odysseus finally arrives home. Imagine he is sleeping on a sailing ship. The ship is heading for his homeland, Ithaca, and the ship makes contact with the homeland. The homecoming happens at the precise moment that the sun rises, and the sleeping passenger, Odysseus, who had been sleeping through the night on this night voyage, at that moment wakes up. So nostos, back to the homeland of Ithaca, the homecoming, is synchronized here with waking up, with coming back to consciousness. And to make it even better, while Odysseus is asleep on the sailing ship as it heads towards Ithaca, Odysseus' sleep is actually compared to death itself. It's a sleep so deep that it is like death, which means that all the symbolism of coming back to life after death, which is the inner mystery, so to speak, of the Odyssey, is coded in this beautiful passage of Odysseus' homecoming in text B, coming from Odyssey Rhapsody 13. A truly climactic moment that shows us that the Odyssey itself is one big metaphor of a journey of a soul, where when it all comes together, there's homecoming, there is coming back to consciousness after unconsciousness, coming back to light after darkness, coming back to life after death, that is to say, a return to light and life. And the Nostos is the Noos, and that is the message, the central message of the Odyssey. Now, to reach the central message, we have to do a lot of trying to get it. It doesn't come easy, and it doesn't come easy for Odysseus either to make his way home. So in a sense, we all have an Odyssey with a lowercase o when we experience the Odyssey, because our striving to understand how the meaning all comes together. That corresponds to the struggle of Odysseus himself in his journey of a soul, as I like to call it.